Our next presentation is by Samira, and she will be sharing with us the drivers of fruit and vegetable intake in India, an unconditional quantile regression approach. Samira.
Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be presenting a paper on what underlies inadequate and unequal fruit and vegetable consumption in India. This paper forms part of the Chefs program supported by the Wellcome Trust. I would like to first thank my supervisor Bhavani Shankar, Alan Dangor, and other co-authors of this paper. So fruits and vegetables provide essential vitamins and minerals in settings where micronutrient deficiencies are widespread. And this is of particular importance in India, where there is a well-documented research crisis relating to diet-related chronic diseases. But the Indian diet is cereal-dominated, lacking in F&V content. And the recent paper by Minocha et al. Highlights the per capita, highlights the low per capita daily consumption of fruits and vegetables in India using the National Sample Survey data, but beyond that there is very little information on the key correlates of consumption both at household and food systems level. So in this paper we examine what are the key economic, socio-demographic, and food system drivers of household fruit and veg consumption, particularly the role of income, religion, caste, and food system drivers such as roads and agricultural markets. So using round 68, our analysis is based on a recently alternative NSS survey format, which provides information on raw fruits and vegetables consumption during a reference period of 7 days. Our dependent variable is the household fruit and veg consumption, and our remaining set of covariates consists of a variety of household socio-demographic indicators. District level data from on agricultural infrastructure on roads and agricultural markets from the VDSA for a subset of 50 districts is combined with the round 68 of the NSSO. The VDA sample is much smaller than the overall sample, and so we do two sets of analysis with and without food system drivers. So in terms of methods, we use non-parametric regression to look at the bivariate relationships between key covariates and F&V consumption. We use OLS regression models to examine the drivers of fruit and vegetable consumption, controlling for state fixed effects. We apply UQR methods to determine the differential effects of these household socioeconomic drivers at various parts of the household fruit and veg consumption distribution. That is, with a special focus on those who consume the least F&V. That is, how the effect on those with severely inadequate intakes differ from those with average intakes and those with high intakes. So for instance, it is likely that the association between increased wealth and fruit and veg consumption for those currently in the bottom 10% of the intake distribution will be different from those in the middle or those in the top 10%. And we use a smaller sample to carry out exploratory analysis between district level infrastructure variables and fruit and veg consumption and estimate a multi-level model comprised of two levels, household and district. So the first figure shows the unequal distribution of fruit and vegetable consumption using the full Indian sample. Fruit and veg consumption is generally low. I want to emphasize that these two non-parametric graphs only plot bivariate associations, but our regressions with full controls confirm the important influence of household income and relative price of fruit and veg. So the NSS does not collect food price information, so we estimate a price proxy that is the relative price of fruit and veg, that is the ratio of expenditure over quantity, and we can see that that relative price of fruit and veg has a negative influence on consumption levels. The bar graph on your right-hand side points out caste-wise differentials in outcomes. Basically, we can see that scheduled tribes consume less F&V compared to other social class groups, in particular the others forward caste groups. So in terms of results, I'll be presenting OLS and unconditional quantile regression results and multi-level regression estimates of influence of district-level road and market infrastructure on household fruit and veg consumption. So these figures plot OLS and UQR results. The y-axis is not income or relative price of fruit and veg, but it is the coefficient of income or the relative price. That is how fruit and veg consumption changes with income or relative price. So the OLS results confirm a strong association between household per capita monthly expenditure, while the coefficient on the relative price of fruit and veg is statistically significant and negative, implying that higher F&V prices does play a role in discouraging consumption. But the UQR results show that the consumption of households with the poorest consumption levels respond most strongly to income growth, And however, the relative price coefficient is only statistically significant at the higher quantiles of the fruit and veg consumption distribution. In this slide, OLS results show a positive and statistically significant coefficient relating to rural status, agricultural livelihoods, and female-headed households. And again, we see that UQR results show that there are these covariates have weaker relationships with fruit and veg consumption at the lower tail and display only the strongest associations at the top of the fruit and vegetable intake distribution. But there is one association relating to caste that is stronger at the lower tail than in the rest of distribution. So here the OLS results indicate that once income and all covariates are controlled for, caste makes very little difference to fruit and veg consumption. The UQR results suggest to the contrary that there is a negative scheduled tribes association with fruit and veg consumption at the lower tail, even after controlling for income and other covariates. And specifically, this points to the need to address a caste-based inequality that exacerbates very low intakes. Next, I'm going to show the results of our exploratory analysis based on the smaller sample for which district-level road and market infrastructure information is available. So for road density, the OLS model shows a statistically positive significant association with household fruit and veg consumption, while the multi-level model produces a statistically insignificant coefficient. However, both models suggest a small positive statistically coefficient relationship between district-level market density and F&V consumption. And although data deficiencies imply that this result should be treated with caution, these preliminary results suggest that further analysis based on more complete VDSA data when available may be worthwhile. So in conclusion, this is the first study that examines the key economic, socio-demographic, and food system drivers of household fruit and veg consumption in India using UQR and multi-level regressions. To summarize the key results, firstly, household income and relative price of fruit and veg are important correlates of fruit and veg consumption, but household F&B consumption is also higher, where households are headed by females, are rural, or involve agricultural livelihoods. Secondly, the association of fruit and veg consumption is seen to vary substantially across the consumption distribution. So while the consumption of households with the poorest consumption levels responds most strongly to income growth, many of the other key covariates such as gender, rural location, and relative price display strongest associations at the top of the fruit and veg intake distribution, suggesting that fruit and vegetable consumption of the lower tail may be challenging to shift via typical economic policy levers. And thirdly, the distribution of fruit and veg consumption across caste categories shows that scheduled tribes, long recognized as the most socioeconomically disadvantaged group in India, consume less F&V than others, particularly the other forward caste group. So in our results, the OLS regression suggests that this is largely a matter of income and disadvantage, yet the quantile regression analysis demonstrates that amongst those with the worst intakes, there is indeed a further disadvantage faced by scheduled tribes even after controlling for income and other covariates. And therefore, our results suggest that in order to improve F&V consumption, government policies will need to tailor strategies to reach scheduled tribes in particular in line with previous literature that documents the numerous barriers faced by scheduled tribes in accessing public services relevant to nutrition. Thank you.